All right, everyone. Thanks for joining the webinar today. My name is Lila Roselle, and I'm a Customer Success Manager here at Jazz, and I'll be helping moderate today. This will be an interactive webinar with some polls throughout, so feel free to participate and share your feedback as we go along. At the end of the session, Elena will field some questions, so feel free to ask questions at the end, and any questions we don't have time to get to, we will respond via email afterwards. Today we have Elena Smith, who is the lead HR strategist at TPD, presenting Leverage Company Values to Drive Results. TPD is an international workforce and HR solutions company that has been servicing North America for over 35 years. They partner with organizations and HR professionals to provide scalable HR solutions, recruitment, and staffing services. Regardless of how big or small your HR or workforce need may be, TPD can provide you with the flexible solution designed to suit your business needs. Without further ado, here's Elena.
Great. Hello, everyone, and thank you. And I'm just going to share my screen. Can you see that, Lila?
Yep,
okay.
Great.
Great. So, thank you all for joining the webinar. We are going to be talking about leveraging your company values to drive business success. So, my promise to you is that we're going to give you some valuable tools and processes that are going to help you improve your business by having the right people on your team. We're going to look at who are your rock stars and what makes those people stand out, and then how can you attract more of those people. With these tools, you also should be able to impact lost revenue due to poor performance, reduce the subjectivity and the slipperiness of fit and evaluating fit of your people, and also identify the people that are eroding the culture of your organization. So we're going to be together for just under an hour from now. And what we're going to do is, for those of you that stick around to the end, TPD is going to be offering you our value-based performance excellence program template. So for any of you that stick around to the end, we're happy to share that with you. So I ask you to please turn off your cell phones, close your emails or Facebook, and we'll get started. So my name is Elena Smith, as Lila introduced me, and I am TPD's lead HR strategist. And what that really means is that I work with small and medium-sized businesses across the US and Canada to help them improve their business performance by designing relevant HR programs and processes. I have a Bachelor of Commerce degree from UBC, the University of British Columbia, and I'm a certified human resources professional. I believe one of my strengths, particularly as an HR practitioner, is that I have a broad business experience. I started in marketing, I've done international sales, I've also been the president of a manufacturing company, as well as doing strategic HR. I have experience as an entrepreneur and in family business, so hopefully that helps me relate more to some of the challenges that you're experiencing in your own businesses. So that's a bit about me. And now I'd love to learn more about those of you who are participating in the webinar. And that way, if it leans one way or another, I can try to tailor my content a little bit to be more relevant to you. So you're going to see the first poll appear on your screen. And please let us know what your role is in your company. And Lila will be announcing the results of the poll.
All right, looks like we got all the votes in. 2% of you are business owners, 48% in HR, 40% in talent acquisition or recruiter, 2% in marketing, and 15% in other.
Great. Okay, thank you for that. So what we're going to do next is I want you to imagine. So imagine what your life would be like when you've got a great team and you've got a great culture that's driving success in your organization. When you have the ability to attract and assess who those good people are, and when you've dealt with the non-performers and the people that are toxic to your organizational culture. So what this enables you to do is focus on growth and where you'd like to take the business and all those ideas that you've had that things get in the way of implementing. So these are some of the tools and processes that I'm going to share with you today, hoping that these are going to help to get you to that place. So I'm going to call them our no longer secret sauces, and I'm going to share 3 of those with you. The first one is how to develop meaningful values and what makes a value meaningful. Then we're going to look at how to assess fit. And I'm going to share a simple but very powerful tool that you can use throughout your organization to look at fit. And finally, we're going to talk about how to make those meaningful values actionable in your organization. So the first thing we should do is define what are values. So values are the guidelines for behaviors and mindsets that will help your organization achieve its vision. They're going to guide people in the actions they take day to day, in the decisions they make, in how they react to situations that come up, because it's going to be a set of guidelines that they're going to know at the core of the organization how you would like them to deal with those things. So the first step is critical. You have to start by defining your company mission and vision, because your values at the end of the day are those behaviors that are going to drive how you're going to achieve those. So a mission is why your organization exists, and your vision is where you're going. Throughout this webinar, I'm going to use a case study of TPD, our company, which will help you see how we've actually implemented that. So TPD's mission is we help people succeed and we help organizations perform. And our vision is that by 2025, TPD will be a virtually enabled and tech-smart services company that is positively changing lives by providing workforce and HR solutions in North America. How many of you would say that you have a clearly defined vision and mission for your organization?
All right, the results are in, and 58% of you responded yes, 35% kind of and needs improvement, and 8% no.
Okay, great. So sounds like a lot of you are already well on the way. So you've got your vision and mission defined, and those are really important because you've got to know where you're going if you're going to be able to figure out how you need to get there. So the next thing that you're going to do, step 3 of a 7-part process to developing meaningful values, is you're going to identify who are the rock stars in your organization and look at what are the behaviors and characteristics that you think make those people successful. So I would encourage you to do this with your leadership team or with managers, where you get together, pick 3 or 4 or 5 of the people that you would say are your star performers, and figure out what it is about them that makes them so successful. So we did this with TPD, and some of the types of examples that we came up with would be John. He was technologically savvy, a quick learner, a go-getter, intelligent. Jane is a collaborator, a team player. She's a great communicator. Jamie is analytical, business-minded, results-oriented. So we ended up starting with a list just coming from the people within the company that are embodying what we'd like to see more of. The next thing that we did, step 4, was we went out to the entire organization. We do this because we want to have buy-in from everyone and have them feel like they've been a part of the process of defining these meaningful values. So when we did this with TPD, we probably came up with 25 words that came as being that were sort of thrown in by different people in the organization of what they feel enables us to be successful. And then what we did was we started to create common groupings so that we could reduce them. This was the start of going through the reduction process. And we would do this, you can do this with a post-it note session, but where you end up kind of putting like subjects together. From this point, when we got initial interest from everyone in the company, then we created a subcommittee. And the subcommittee was a group of cooperative people, and I use that word intentionally, people that were going to try to work through this in a positive way rather than those that sort of can be more destructive and sabotage the process. So cooperative people, and they took the list and narrowed it down. So this would be an example of what we came down to. Business-minded, systems-enabled, results-focused, quick, agile, innovative, creative, hustle, and collaborator. But once we come up with this list, we wanted to see, okay, are these really going to be meaningful values? And there's a checklist that we went through on each of these. Are these values required to realize our vision? Are they realistic or are they aspirational? Are we really capturing who we are or just who we want to be? Because they're going to be way more meaningful if it actually narrows in on who we really are. Do these values differentiate our organization? Do your successful people and leaders actually live them every day? Could people look around the organization and say, I see that, I see that. Yes, that makes sense to me. And one clue is you want one of them to be results-oriented. For successful businesses, consistently, one of their values is that they are focused on results. So when we ran our checklist through these questions, we ended up keeping some and dismissing others of those. And part of that was also around building uniqueness. Finally, we took each of those, what we had come up with 6 values, and we now started to explain more about what they were. So we put detail behind them and meaning behind them. So one of TPD's, for example, was to be business-minded. And we describe that as we understand what makes business work. We provide relevant solutions to impact business. We connect with our stakeholders as business partners. And we recognize that problems and opportunities generate demand. And we picked this one because we thought if we can really build on this part that we knew was already one of our strengths, this is going to help differentiate us from other companies in the HR and workforce solutions arena. Finally, you want to publish and communicate those values. So these were the 6 that we came up with at TPD. Agile, we're collaborative, we're systems enabled, we GSD, which can either be get shit done or get stuff done, depending on who our customer is. We hustle, we're business minded, and we're results focused. And what we wanted to do was make sure that the values that we came up with would be meaningful for us inside our organization, but also that we could put them on our website, be public about them, share them with people outside our company, and that it would also help them say, I want to work with this company. Their values reflect ours. So as part of the communication, it's not enough just to send out an email and say, okay, here attached is the PDF, these are our values. What we did was we developed an internal communications campaign. And every day we trickled another nugget, another value, more examples, specific things that people had done that reinforced this, so that over 30 days, by the end of that time period, people had really bought into what these new values were and were excited about them. There was a lot of repetition, and there was a lot of ways that people could see those values being recognized. There were contests, you can do games, lots of things that are going to reward behavior that reflects your values. So we've done this with many clients, and I wanted to give you a little dose of our experience or reality from having done that. So when we do this with clients, typically we allow the process to take around 3 months. And I say that because if you do it too quickly, you can be superficial, rush over it, and it doesn't stick. So if you want it to be sustainable, make sure that it's done with enough time that people can really buy into the process. You need your executive team on board. They need to be aligned with the vision and mission, and they need to be involved in helping to define what those values are in order for them to be champions for it going forward. You also need to get buy-in from everyone in the company, which is where the brainstorm came in. But at the end of the day, it's going to be a smaller group of people that are going to help you narrow them down. You just don't want too many chefs in the kitchen. It's hard enough, even with a small group of 5 to 7 people, to reach consensus. So you want to be careful about who you bring in. I would suggest you want to bring in at least some people from your executive team, but you can also bring in others, maybe some of those rock stars in the organization who can help you articulate it. I would encourage you not to get caught up looking for perfection. You will never get to the point where everyone agrees entirely, but you want to capture the general intent of the value, and it's more important that you capture it and communicate it effectively than whether you've got it 100% right. And sometimes at the end of the day, you've got to have a silver bullet. There's got to be someone in the company who can say, you know what, this is what it is and this is what we're going forward with, and often that's the CEO. But if not, it might be someone involved in marketing or internal communications. So, having looked at what meaningful values mean, can you share with us how many of you feel that your organization's values are really meaningful?
Great, everyone. The results are 70% yes, 22% kind of or needs improvement, and 8% no.
Okay, that's great. So, we've looked at developing meaningful values. The next of our secret sauces that we're going to look at is how to assess fit. So there's a fantastic tool that we like to use to assess fit, and this is called the People Analyzer, and it was developed by EOS Worldwide. And what this does is it looks at 2 main areas. The first one is highlighted in blue. It asks whether each person in your company, do they get it? Do they understand what it takes to get that job done? Do they grasp the big picture? Do they know what their impact or potential impact can be on the organization? Do they want it? Are they motivated? Are they trying to do their best? Are they going above and beyond to make things happen? And do they have the capacity to do it? And sometimes that capacity might be related to experience, it might be related to just intellectual capacity, and sometimes it's just purely time. Do they have the time to do what you need them to get done? The other area that you want to look at is values. So if I go to our case study, what you'll see here for Jane and Jamie is that we looked at, do they want it? Do they get it? Do they have the capacity to do it? And then how would they reflect the values of the organization, being agile, business-minded, collaborative, results-focused, systems-enabled? And what you do is you put a plus, minus, or a plus, minus in each of the boxes. Ideally, you're going to have meaningfully more than half of these are going to be pluses. If many more than half of these are pluses, chances are you've got a really strong person, a strong performer in your organization, or someone who is building a positive culture. If more of them are negative than positive, chances are you've got the complete opposite. So there are a couple of things that are really great about this tool. If you run everyone in your organization through, and the thing that we did was we asked each of our managers to run this with people. Firstly, it's super simple. Everybody gets it. It's not something that takes in-depth training or complexity for them to understand how to do it. So it's a really simple tool that can be easily replicated across everyone in the company, firstly. And the other thing that it does is it takes away the slipperiness of behavior. So often when you are trying to evaluate whether someone's the right fit, it's not that they're not doing the job, it's not that they don't have the experience to do the job well, but they're just doing it in a way that is not building positive culture in the organization. It's behavioral things that are often the reason why an employment relationship doesn't work out, and we've sort of used the term fit for that. But what this does is it enables your managers to be more specific about that slippery feeling of behavior and say, you know, it's their agility. I feel like every time we change direction or we're looking for them to take on something new, I get pushback, I get resistance. So that would be an example of agility. Or they're just not business-minded. I feel like they're not fully grasping the challenges that my customer is dealing with. So it's inhibiting their ability to deliver the level of work that we need. So it gives the manager something to put their finger on about what it is that is not working with that employee. So when the other thing that is good about this is if you put your values against it and you run all your people on it, it should separate the high performers and the low performers. If you do this on the high and low performers and it doesn't reflect properly, then chances are the values that you've picked are maybe not the values that are really driving performance. So it's a good way of going back and actually checking that your values are where they should be. So that is the tool that we would recommend for assessing fit in the organization. The next thing we look at is how to make meaningful values actionable. So it's been many, many years now that organizations have been defining a mission, a vision, and values, so much so that they almost become a cliche. It's having them on the wall, everyone sees what they mean, but they don't actually reflect the way things are done in a business day to day. I mean, Enron is a perfect example of that many of you have probably heard of. You know, their values were communication, respect, integrity, and excellence. And that when you look at what actually happened with a company like Enron, you say, could they really have been living those values day to day? Would the employees in their guts have felt like this is how we're working? So we're going to look at how to make your values actionable. And what you want to do here is you want to integrate these values, intertwine them through all of your HR programs and practices. So the first one would be developing your employer brand. So in today's day where it's such a competitive market to get good talent, it's so important that your employer brand is, it's as important as marketing your products and services to your customers as it is marketing your employer brand to your potential employees. So you want to share what the values are of your company so that they can decide if those connect with their values and if they are going to be inspired to be a part of that. You want to do it on your website, you want to do it through your interview process, you want to do it through your job postings, any opportunities you have to portray those values to potential candidates that you're trying to attract. The next one is looking at the actual recruitment and selection process. And here, we bring those values and we put behavioral interview-related value questions into the interviews that we're doing with people. So you're looking for examples in their character, in their history, in their work experience that can demonstrate to you that their values are going to be consistent and support the values of the organization. So it's a really useful tool when you're bringing someone on board to look it through with those lenses. The other one is performance management. And you can use this at both ends. You can use this for high performers to be reinforcing and acknowledging to them that you recognize and appreciate what they're doing and how they are rock stars and role models in the organization for reinforcing the positive values. And you can also use it as a way, as we explained with the People Analyzer, to get more specific and more tangible with people about where they're not supporting the values of the organization. It helps you put your finger on fit or misfit and make decisions on those more quickly, because even if you're going to be giving corrective feedback, which you're going to want to try to give, there comes a point when you can say, you know what, this is just not in their values. Our values are just not consistent. So you can make those decisions and look at bringing the right person in instead. And finally, in rewards and recognition. Whether it's on your shared community, whether it's the things that you celebrate, the people that you acknowledge, that you're consistently calling out examples where people have done work in a way that reinforces and builds the values and culture of your organization. So what we'd like to do is our final poll is a check of which of these core processes you feel are really living your values in your organization.
Alrighty, the votes are in. 45% for employer brand, 67% recruitment and selection, 39% performance management, 31% fit or misfits, 39% rewards and recognition.
Great. So hopefully some of the things which we've talked about are going to help you to move those bars forward, because many of you have seemed to have meaningful values. How can you infiltrate those throughout the organization so they're not just going to be values posted on the wall? So what we've covered, just to recap, we've looked at how to develop meaningful values and which components really drive the fact that they are meaningful, how to assess fit using the people analyzer, so measuring people in your organization against your values, creating a common lens for people looking at your managers looking at your people, and how to make meaningful values actionable. So looking at some of those core HR processes and how you can infiltrate your values throughout them to build your business performance and to impact your culture. So as I explained at the beginning, for those of you that would participate in the seminar, we are happy to offer you what we call TPD's value-based performance management template. It really involves a number of things. It involves looking at values and how you bring values into a performance management conversation. It also addresses areas like KPIs as well as SMART objectives. So it doesn't only deal with values, but that's a very important part of the conversation. Just to give you an idea, when we work with clients, of some of the steps that we go through in developing this. So one of the things that we do with a typical client is we would do a workshop where we would work with them to help define their actionable values. We then help to develop a values communication plan so that that word can be spread throughout the organization to get people on board. We do a cultural assessment, an employee engagement survey that feeds into that. We help them with designing a performance management program and then training their managers and employees on how their performance management program works. And at the end of that, we usually do ongoing performance management coaching for managers as they actually roll the program out and what it is that they run into with their employees in doing that. So the value of that would typically be, it's around a $20,000 investment that a client would make in putting, sort of working through this type of program that I've described. So if we take you back to that imagine when point, when you get to the point where you've got the right people in place, you've got a great place to work, a really positive culture, and you've got the tools to bring on the people who are going to continue to build on that future and culture of your organization. And you're no longer having to deal with the people that are eroding your culture or not performing. And that is what we'd like to help you get to. One of the things which we are doing for Jazz clients is we are willing to do the program that I described. where we would do that for you, but as a Jazz client, we would do all of that at $15,997. So that's something that we're offering. If any of you are interested in that, I will tell you in a moment how you'll be able to access that. In addition to that, it will also include a behavioral interview questions template. And what we'll do for clients is if anyone is interested in doing that program, you can go on and you'll be receiving the Value-Driven Performance Excellence program. You will be receiving that template in an email. In the same email, there will be a link where you can go and say, I'm interested in talking further about the program. Frankly, I'm happy to chat with anyone about what you're dealing with in your organization, happy to do sort of a brief free consultation, so let's do that. And if any of you are interested in exploring going further, we can also do that. So there will be a link provided to you in an email that you'll receive following the seminar that will enable you to connect to more details on the offer. So at this time, I want to thank you very much for listening and turn it over to be able to answer some of your questions. So Lila, would you like me to read out questions, or are you seeing questions that you can read out?
No, I'll go ahead and read them out here as they come in. I also provided the link for the offer in the chat. If anyone's interested, you can go ahead and click there. So the first question is, how long would the full program typically take?
So if we were going to do the full program, it could be, I would say, including the engagement survey as well as the performance management rollout and all of that, I would say in an ideal world, you're looking at between 4 to 5 and 6 months. So sort of 4 to 6 months. And the reason for that is you want involvement from your people, and people are busy. So there's only so much time that you can actually use to bring them in. So you want to create some momentum, you want to keep things moving forward, but you don't want to get to the point where they don't want to deal with it anymore because they've actually got to get their other work done. So I would say a good amount of time to get buy-in and have something that's sustainable at the end of the day is probably 4 to 6 months if you're going to be doing the engagement survey as well, because you're going to want to come back to them with the results of the engagement survey, the findings, some of your ideas. So I would say 4 to 6 months.
Right, next question. What should I do when values have to change?
So my first question, I don't know if I'm going to be able to answer this, is what your role is in the company. So if you are at an executive level, at the end of the day, you've got to start with the executives buying in that the values need to change. And then you want to start, this is where I would go back to that 7-step process that I described. So if you recognize that your values need to change, they're not actually meaningful to the organization, you're going to want to go back to that point of looking at, well, do we know where we want to go? Do we know the type of behaviors that we need? And then you're going to start to go through, let's look at the people who are reinforcing and performing the way that we need them to. What is it that they're doing right? Then bringing people in the organization to get everyone else's input into what needs to happen for you to be successful, because your employees, they will have strong opinions on that. And then to go through this sort of narrowing down of what those values are. But at the end of the day, if you were a recruiter or in an HR position, you need to get your managers on board or your executives on board with the opportunity that you're missing by not having these values be meaningful. And if any of you want, I'm happy to have those types of conversations with them as to how those, how meaningful values can impact an organization. I'd be very happy to do that for any of you wanting to help bring your executives along.
Next question is, how do I convince my management team to engage in a review of values?
Well, I would probably start with questions. And I would probably start with asking them how they feel about the values. Because I think what happens, and this is the cliche piece for so many of us, the values are there. They're sitting there, whether it's on a website or on the wall or wherever it is. People know what they are. But when we start to ask people whether they really are meaningful, I wouldn't be surprised if they would feel the same way as you. You know, no, I don't really feel like they're not driving how we do business. So they're not actually benefiting the company. And I would try to give examples of how, if you articulate your values well, and if those values are meaningful and actionable, I would be maybe sort of sharing some of the elements of this presentation of, look how much more we can be doing with those values. And look how many ways we could be impacting the performance of our business if we can make sure that our values are the right ones.
Okay, the next question is, how do I improve integrity in a company?
How do I improve integrity in a company? So I think that there's one of the things I would look at is, are you being aspirational or are you being realistic? Are you actually setting real expectations about the things that you do and that you can do in your organization? Because one of the other challenges with values is often they can be aspirational. It's more who we want to be than who we really are. And then that can erode your integrity because you're not actually performing the way that you say you should. So I would look at whether those are really realistic. I would also question the difference between integrity and accountability, because I think that there is a difference there. I think accountability is more around, do I actually get done what I need to get done? And integrity is more about the way that I do things. So I think the integrity piece really does tie into values. And I mean, you know, how many companies don't have integrity in their values? So, you know, one of the other things to look at, and that's what we did when we did TPDs, is we said we're not using integrity. We're going to use a word, we're going to find another way of expressing that so that it really does have relevant meaning. But I would look at, what do we really say we're going to do, and is that realistic within our scope?
Okay, next question is, what positive outcomes have you seen that I might be able to expect? This was a follow-up from the TPD case study.
Oh, the ability to put our finger on fit. And I say, I mean, if there's one thing that you take away from this presentation, it's so easy, I would start using that People Analyzer tool. I mean, it is literally easy enough. You can do it on the back of a napkin. And I would run your people through it. And, you know, when we did that and how that helped us put our finger on the people that were really contributing and why they were doing so much for the company, and for the people that, you know what, it just isn't the right fit. And it helped us put our finger on that. It has helped us be able to have conversations with people. One of the other things which we do in the performance review is we ask our employees to evaluate themselves on the People Analyzer. And there's some of them that will acknowledge, you know what, I mean, classic one is systems enabled. Some of our people in the organizations are, you know, I am just not technologically savvy, and this whole systems piece is a real struggle for me. It doesn't mean that they're not going to be a part of the organization going forward, but it helps us know where they need support, where they need development. If they're really strong in all the other areas, it helps us focus in on where they could set personal goals and where we can support them in it. So I would say using that People Analyzer, I can't recommend enough what a useful little tool it is.
Thank you so much, Elena. I think that wraps up the questions that we'll have time for right now. If anyone has any additional questions, they can always respond to the webinar's email that went out too, and we can make sure we get those along, or obviously contact TPD on their contact information here. I want to thank you again, Elena. Do you have any last wrap-up words before I go ahead and give people the next steps?
Just to say thank you so much for attending, and again to encourage you on the email that you'll receive, there will be a link. If you follow the link, if you want to have sort of a free consultation, just chat further about your organization, I'd be more than happy to do that. So encourage you to do that. It'll also, we can talk a little bit further about whether some of the services that we offer might be relevant to your organization. So yeah, if you'd like to hear further, also our contact details were shared on the screen as well, so you're welcome to contact us as well. Thank you so much.
Thanks again, Elena. Thanks to everyone for attending today. As we said, you'll receive a follow-up email with the slide deck and a recording of the session. You'll also have a link to get the discovery call, sign up for a discovery call with TPD to determine whether or not this offer is right for you guys. If it is end up being a good fit, then you will receive it at the Jazz price. So that link is also in the chat here if you can access the chat in the GoToWebinar, but you will receive it after as well. Thanks again, everyone.
Thank you so much.